Welcome to
Only Murders in the Building,
the official podcast.
Join me, Michael Cyril Creighton, as we go behind the scenes with some of the amazing actors, writers, and crew from season 5.
The audience should never stop suspecting anything.
How can you not be funny crawling around on a coffin?
No, that's true.
Catch Only Murders in the Building official podcast, now streaming wherever you get your podcasts. And watch Only Murders in the Building, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
The Kirk murder looks like a well-organized political assassination. The killer of Charlie Kirk appears to have acted with forethought and detailed planning. There seems to be no random act of passion or violence. The shooter was more than 200 yards away, and it took only one well-aimed shot to bring Charlie down. The killer escaped amid a crowd of hundreds of thousands of onlookers. His unfired bullets all included markings underscoring the shooter's pro-trans motivation. Kirk's murder may well have been a professional hit job. The rifle, an older model .30 caliber hunting weapon, was recovered in a wooded area not far from Utah Valley University campus where the shooting occurred. Wrapped in a towel and partially concealed under branches, the rifle still held a spent cartridge in its chamber. Law enforcement official told the Wall Street Journal that 3 additional rounds were found in the magazine, each etched with words or phrases that investigators now regard as ideologically significant. These included, "Hey fascist, catch."
Oh my God, I hate...
If you read this, you are gay. LMAO. That means laughing my ass off.
Horrible.
Oh Bella Ciao, oh Bella Ciao, oh Bella Ciao, Ciao Ciao, an anti-fascist meme. The unusual markings have raised serious concerns among federal and state investigators about the motive behind the fatal attack, although authorities stress that the inquiry is still in its early stages. Kirk, 31, was addressing an audience of more than 3,000 students and supporters at Utah Valley University on Wednesday when the fatal shot rang out. According to videos obtained by local media and confirmed in the Wall Street Journal report, Kirk was in the middle of an exchange with the students on the topic of mass shootings involving transgender perpetrators.
Yeah.
It was during this moment of pointed debate that a single round shot him in the neck. Usually acts of violence on American campus cause news stories and analysis centering on the shooter's upbringing, parents, and psychological motivations. But the Kirk murder should cause a closer look at violence by and directed against the trans community. Roughly 1 out of every 5 victims of bias-motivated crimes were gender non-conforming, trans or non-heterosexual, according to FBI hate crime data. Members of the LGBTQ plus community are more likely to be targets of violence than any other group per capita. A study of hate crimes against the LGBTQ plus community found that despite a 20% drop in reported hate crimes since 2010, instances of violence based on gender bias actually increases. In addition to intimate partner violence, mass shootings and other acts of violence targeting the LGBTQ plus community have increased. The 2016 Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando and the 2022 attack at Club in Colorado Springs, Club Q in Colorado Springs, Colorado, are just 2 of the most deadly events in recent years. As we all mourn the silencing of one of the most sane, reasonable, and rational of political speakers.
And beautiful soul.
Let's hope that his death serves a vital public purpose in stimulating research and discussion of how transsexuality can degenerate into violence.
You know, Charlie always had respect for and towards the people he debated. He spoke with love and God and country. I mean, the guy was beautiful. The way he debated and spoke to people. Even he would say, prove me wrong. That was his thing, right? And people would get up there, young people, and he always wanted people of dissent. He wanted people that will debate him. And he was always kind to them. He always said, I don't want to insult you, but this is what I believe. And Roxana Marie wrote something so beautiful, and she's going to read it right now about Charlie.
Hi, I'm Roxana. I'm like you, a listener, a conservative, and a follower of Charlie Kirk. About half an hour after I was told of his shooting, and at that time we didn't know any details, and when I can't express myself, I wrote. So I'll read it now. To quote, Mark 10, verse 45, points to Jesus' life and coming to serve. Galatians 5, verse 13, emphasizes serving one another through love. Charlie Kirk, you walk the path of God with dedication and wholeheartedness, admitting to receiving your calling in the 5th grade, then deciding as a young man not to go to college, but to speak the word Jesus' way, person to person, kindly, respectfully, openly. Even with unsurmountable differences in the mindset of our youth at the universities, Charlie chose to use this platform as a commitment to our youth, not only to deliver his message, but to listen, challenge, offer these young minds an understanding the true meaning of the freedom of speech, without condemnation, but with the opportunity of a different point of view. Not everyone agreed with Charlie, but make no mistake, each young mind walked away with a new perspective and perhaps a desire to try on a life that delivered something not experienced in these young people's lives thus far. Peace, not conflict. Communication without violence. And through Charlie, learning the tools to do so in debate, realizing how stimulating it can be to discuss one's differences without disrespect. As the saying goes, agree to disagree. A valuable example and lesson through Charlie Kirk. Charlie's crowds grew from hundreds to thousands, an example that our youth was so hungry to be heard without judgment, probably for the first time experiencing what a debate actually details. The crowds were validation enough that they wanted more of what was being served. Charlie Kirk became a movement that will continue for years, decades, as Americans remove the chains of a different bondage, speaking one's truth, with openness and clarity, not in whispers of fear. Charlie's message was delivered with his extraordinary faith in God, humility, and diligence. And this vision became a reality through Turning Point, USA. His service was driven effortlessly. His calling was empowered by God's grace. His devotion possessed a mindset focused on achieving exceptional results. And Charlie, you not only achieved exceptional results, you surpassed all expectations in your movement that will guide our country to the change that is needed. Turning Point USA is shifting our nation. A last thought, Charlie's execution, which at that time I didn't know, just heard of a shooting, ironically was through his throat, to whence one speaks, not silencing as evil would have hoped, but awakening the silent with a renewed, unwavering passion, not only in our country but in the world. For Charlie now sits in the kingdom of heaven with a voice louder, stronger, reaching more souls than one could possibly ever imagine. We hear you, Charlie Kirk, and we see how you turned.
Go on, honey.
The ordinary action of conversation into something extraordinary. To be heard, to change the world through love, May God bless your soul, prayers to your family, and to all those affected, touched by your light. May I also say in closing, darkness cannot exist without the light. Amen.
Thank you, Roxana. That
Thank
was
you.
beautiful.
Bless you.
That was so
Now,
beautiful.
in addition to Roxana, the governor of Utah delivered a very eloquent statement calling on young people to take a different path. Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, made an impassioned plea for the nation to choose a different path and end the scourge of political violence in the wake of the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. The Republican governor of Utah, where Kirk was assassinated while speaking on a university campus, used a press conference to urge the nation to lower the political temperature. Noting Kirk's connection with young people through his campus-focused group Turning Point USA, Cox called on the next generation of Americans to change the course of the country. To my young friends out there, you are inheriting a country with politics where politics feels like rage. It feels like rage is the only option. But we can choose a different path. Your generation has an opportunity to build a culture that is very different from what we are suffering through right now. Not by pretending differences don't matter, but by embracing our differences and having those hard conversations.
That's what Charlie was doing.
Charlie's remarks came at a press conference. Cox's remarks came at a press conference where he announced that the killer had been found.
Yeah, don't mention his name, whatever we do.
Yeah.
He's been arrested allegedly shooting Kirk at the outdoor event in Utah State. The governor said this mental creep was turned in after he confessed he confessed to the family member that he carried out the crime. Authorities have said the alleged gunman was motivated by disgust for Kirk's political ideology. The problem with political violence is it mastatizes because we can always point the finger at the other side, and at some point we have to find an off-ramp or it's going to get much worse. This is what Cox said. I think we need more moral clarity right now, he added. I hear all the time that words are not violent. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. There is one person responsible for what happened here, and that person is now in custody and will be charged soon and will be accountable. Here's the difference with a lot of things going on. We are not rioting. People, the conservative people, the people that listen to Charlie or love him or even just thought about him a little bit, aren't going out and burning little stores or delis or whatever. They're not protesting all over the place with violence. They're just sitting back, putting their head down, saying a prayer and doing what you're supposed to do, what Charlie would want us to do. And I think that's what we keep needing to do. But be aware. Be aware of the violent people out there and don't ever turn away from them. All right.
So when we get back, we're going to talk further about Charlie Kirk's murder. And my question is the trans community becoming the left's hit squad?
And yep, when we come back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Before you start on yours, I just wanted to say, and then you're going to do your thing there. You know, his spiritual voice, his voice of his soul is louder than his living voice right now because now it's everywhere. He doesn't need a microphone anymore. Everyone feels this. Everyone in the world feels it. So once again, it's backfiring on the left and the shooter because he's going to be heard. It's going to be bigger than any Martin Luther King. It's going to be almost as big as Jesus Christ. This is Charlie's crucifixion, if I may. You know, that horrible shot. It was a crucifixion of Charlie Kirk. And his voice, the spirit in his soul is louder than ever before. Go on, Dick. I'm sorry.
I have a political question that follows this. The murder of Charlie Kirk raises a fundamental question. Is the left grooming transsexuals to be an active strike force, attacking and intimidating advocates who espouse conservative values. Men who want to become women are an especially malleable population. They tend to be young and male and can be easily influenced and incited to violence. Now, it's wrong to use one example to stereotype an entire community of people, but the example of Charlie Kirk's assassination by a shooter who lived with a transitioning male deserves attention. There is a shocking trend toward violence against trans people. The number of trans people who were murdered in the U.S. nearly doubled between 2017 and 21, rising from 29 to 56. My question is the left using this record of violence against trans people to induce some of them to retaliate and kill people identified with criticism of transsexuality? Is that what happened to Charlie Kirk? This hypothesis deserves investigation.
That's interesting.
Just to repeat that last paragraph. Is the left using this record of violence against trans people to induce some of them to retaliate and kill people identified with criticism of transsexuality? Is that what happened to Charlie Kirk? This hypothesis deserves consideration and investigation.
Well, I think at one point they might have stepped into this. What are we going to call them? The trans people. I don't know how to talk about them. They might have stepped into this and they're causing violence now. And the left just said, wow, this is great. I don't know if they were looking for them. They're always looking for people that will cause violence. So, they think they're going to stop us or shut us down. But just like with any big organization, criminal organization, it's always the low man on the totem pole that'll do violence towards people. It's never the big guys, you know what I mean? It's never the top guy and his captains down the line. It's always some young guy, a wannabe, hang-arounder that does this. And I think these people right now are the hang-arounders, you know what I mean? They want to make a name for themselves. That's why I will never say this kid's name, this creepy, murderous piece of garbage. I'll never say his name. But anyway, that's my thought behind that, Dick. So, go to the next one, would you like? All right, conservatives facing campus violence. Campus conservatives have suffered violence from the ideological opposing peers for years, but recent events such as findings from a campus speech survey as an academic study and the murder of Charlie Kirk have shown that the violent opposition, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time speaking, has escalated to new heights. A day before Charlie Kirk, a conservative influencer and leader of the nation's largest conservative youth movement, was murdered at Utah Valley State University. The College Fix reported, that's a newspaper. The College Fix reported on the overwhelming student support for violence to stop campus speech. A survey from the Foundation of Individual Rights and Expression, which studied over 68,000 students from 238 American colleges, recorded that 15% of students believe violence towards campus speakers is justified. 15% of students, and they think it's justified. The same survey found that 52% of students find it acceptable to block others from attending a campus speech. You talk about fascism and stopping people from speaking. According to the survey, 1 in 3 students believe that using violence to stop campus speech is acceptable, with 2% deeming it always acceptable, 13% sometimes acceptable, and 19% rarely acceptable. This is horrible. Following the survey's release on Tuesday, the organization's chief research advisor, Sean Stevens, issued a news release expressing his concern over the findings, claiming that this is an American problem, that's for sure. More students than ever think violence and chaos are acceptable and alternatives to peaceful protest. This finding cuts across partisan lines. It's not a liberal or conservative problem. It's an American problem. The organization's president and CEO, Greg Lukianoff, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Lukianoff, added that a student's inability to mediate with opposing views only increases the nationwide polarization. This will only harm students' ability to think critically and create rifts between them. We must champion free speech as Charlie did on campus and remedy our culture's deep polarization. This has to, I just believe that it's just a culture in the last 10 or maybe even 20 years between the games and the rap music and all this stuff, and things are acceptable. We said the other day, last week, we were talking about how it was acceptable to, it was okay for certain cultures not to worry about fathers in the family and whatnot. Certain things are just acceptable right now, and we have to stop that. And thank God for Trump that I think he's working on that somewhat, because the norm shouldn't be the norm anymore. We really need to change this up, as much as we can. And I think that's what our show's about.
Yeah, I'm working personally on the concept that beyond just saying how terrible this is and how horrible it is,
right,
and the grant of violence around the country and spread of intolerance and all of that, I'm wondering if this is not part of a deliberate hit job by the left to create a strike force of disaffected young men to go out and shoot and attack and intimidate conservative voices, particularly on campus.
You said that to me earlier, Dick, and at first I thought no, but you know what? This might be. This really just might be that. I hate to even think that, but look what's going on.
Let's open the lines and see what people have said.
Let's get to, Sandra in New Jersey. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
Oh, my God, I have so much to say. First, beautiful, beautiful testimony from Roxanne, and I love the opening prayer, my favorite one. I was crying when I heard it. Look, first I want to say that scholars are saying that this is a watershed movement, meaning it's a turning point that changes the course of history. It can go either way. It could become a catalyst where the left says enough is enough, and we work together, or it can go further deeper. And I want to tell you something, Douglas. You're right. Charlie Kirk is going to be bigger than life. You know how many videos on YouTube I already have started watching about him? I can't. You're right. We're going to all tune in even more. I wish it didn't have to be on account of this, but It's awful. I'm brokenhearted.
I listen to him every night for a year now. I don't know how long. It's been a long time. I've been listening to him. And as a matter of fact, General Flynn invited me to a premiere of his movie. I think it might have been 2 years ago. I don't remember. His movie, where you got pardoned and whatnot. And he called me up. He says, Doug, listen, I was in Florida. He goes, come to my premiere. I want you to sit and meet Charlie Kirk. You sit at the table with him. And I couldn't make it for whatever reason, 4-hour drive. And now I kick myself, But I know, Sandra, it's hard to even get words out these days.
Let me just inject a perspective here. The hymn Amazing Grace was written by John Newton, N-E-W-T-O-N, in 1772, and reflects his own redemption from a life of sin, particularly his involvement in the transatlantic slave trade. After experiencing a divine awakening during a violent storm at sea, Newton, who had previously abandoned his Christian upbringing to become a cruel slave captain, began a journey of repentance that eventually led him to become an abolitionist and an Anglican clergyman. The hymn's text, published in 1779, speaks of the hope of forgiveness and redemption, even from those sinful individual. And the Amazing Grace became almost the anthem of the anti-slavery movement in Britain.
Really? I didn't know that.
And shortly after it was written, the political momentum for banning slavery in Britain reached such level that it passed and slavery was banned in England.
I kind of knew that story. I didn't realize it when I put the song together in the prayer. But Charlie Kirk, always, if you listen to him a lot, he always says, I'm a sinner and I'm always trying to be a better person. I know what it is to be a sinner, and he talked about that. So you just saying that just made it all come together. It's hard to. Oh, Sandra, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. I want to say he always said every morning to his wife, I love you, my dear. If I can do anything better today, let me know what I can do to be a better husband. And I want to tell you one more thing about Amazing Grace. My mother, may she rest in peace, she said, when she dies, I want that song played at my funeral. And she talks about, I was blind, but now I see. So there's a lot in that prayer that, Dick brought up a lot of it, but there's that too. We didn't see, but now we see because this is terrible.
How about the strength of his wife? She was able to stand up there for 10 minutes and give that beautiful, I don't know what you want to call it. It wasn't a speech. Eulogy. It wasn't even but whatever. It was beautiful and hard to get through it. Wow. I mean, you're talking, she's going to be the new Charlie Kirk, a big part of speaking to people and whatnot. I think. I don't know that,
Just to briefly go back to the song itself. Abolition in Britain occurred in phases, abolition of slavery, with the Slave Trade Act of 1807 banning the international slave trade, and the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833 ending slavery across the British Empire by 1838. The movement was driven by religious and moral arguments, especially from Quakers, combined with Enlightenment ideals, economic shifts, and the activism of figures like John Newton, William Wilberforce, and somebody else.
Right.
This has been something I've been studying for a while. There's a wonderful book by Eric Metaxas.
Oh, I love that guy.
Who you've often seen on TV and on radio, that gives the biography of William Wilberforce and explains how he became a force for abolition, and ultimately, with his support, it was possible to eliminate slavery in Britain and then eventually throughout the world.
There's also George from Rockland. I've thought about what he's about to tell us or ask. I thought about this, George, since this happened. I think it's going to happen. Go on, George. Tell us.
Well, thank you for taking my call, okay? So, in this day of age that you have so much conflict and even some evil, okay? But there's also a lot of good here. I would appreciate if you, Mr. Morris, and people who you know can approach the president, can approach the Congress.
We are.
And institute a day, a Charlie's Day, a Charlie Kirk Day. Same thing as you have Martin Luther King Day. And this would be every year. And I believe in this day, people would get together and engage other people. And the days that you cannot cancel anybody and everybody has to be respectful, this would bring back this country back together, and it'll be a big,
well,
big
George, I believe
wonderful idea.
I believe absolutely, without us even mentioning it to the president, that he's going to do it.
I'm going to suggest this to President Trump.
I was
probably tonight.
Mm-hmm. I think he already has it in his head.
It's
he's
a
going to do
wonderful
this.
idea.
Thank you, George. It was great. Who else do we have? John from Bergen County. Vilification. Let's hear this.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I actually called the show a couple of years ago and spoke to you about this. The Democrats are directly responsible for Charlie Kirk's death, and this is the reasoning. Mm-hmm. They practice vilification politics. They make the enemy so bad that anything they do to stop them is justifiable.
Right.
And that's been their strategy, as far as I'm concerned, for maybe 8-10 years, or maybe even going all the way back to the Clintons. So by demonizing the opposition to the point where their supporters think they're actually doing a good thing by shooting them. I have another point if you'd let me make it.
Sure, go.
The second point is that kids traditionally voted left because the policies of the left rarely affected them. In this last election, the policies of the left, the battleground were school children. Lockdowns, masks in school, kitty litter in bathrooms, tampons, him putting tampons in the men's room. They were ground zero for it, and they were affected by it for the first time in my lifetime. And I think that's why they've been radicalized right. Not in a bad way, just in a way where they saw the policies, they were affected by them, and for the rest of their lives, they're not going to trust the left.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I believe that this assassination marks a turning point, the name of his group, and I think that the national focus is going to be very beneficial to Charlie Kirk's legacy.
I think what happened, one of the major things here is, they wanted to shut him down because they couldn't debate him. He was winning everything. I don't even want to call. He wouldn't even want to say winning. He was just engaging the people in a way where he's changing some of the hearts and minds of young people, and the left hates that they're going to lose some of the people on the left. I went to church this morning with Roxana. It was 9:00 mass, right? And we obviously love this guy, so we're not feeling great. We're just relaxed, right? And the church was, first of all, Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Redding, Connecticut. And I want to make sure everyone knows that so they don't go there right now. And the priest was speaking of martyrs and different things, and he never wanted, the what do you call it? He does,
Homily.
the homily. And you think I'd know some kind of Catholic I am. So he never once mentioned Charlie Kirk. So it got very quiet at one point. After he was done, he was about to go do the communion gig. And I said, not too loud. Dick thinks I'm loud. I'm Italian. I don't bellow. I said, can you please speak of Charlie Kirk? And everyone turned around, looked, and he looked at me. But I was quiet about it. I didn't make a thing of it. And he just looked at me, and then he turned away, and he finished this thing. I didn't go up for communion because I wasn't touching that communion that this guy touched. And, Redding, Connecticut, I think, and Dick has told me that it's a liberal area, so okay, maybe it is. But the church didn't. And I went outside after Mass, and I was the first one to talk to the priest, and I said, Charlie Kirk really is a servant of Jesus and the Lord and God, and he did so much to people and planted a seed in so many young people. And he kind of blew it off. Oh, I don't know that much about him. And he kind of made it, and he was full of it, So I'm a little hurt by that the Catholic Church, and I believe there's a lot of Catholic churches out there that are talking about this. This is one place. But anyway, we have a hard break all of a sudden.
When we come back, we're going to become a little more secular and talk about the New York City mayor's race.
Okay.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. So back to politics. Before a candidate drops out of a race, he usually commissions a poll to tell him to get the hell out. And usually he keeps quiet about it. But the marked shift Mayor Eric Adams said is planning soon to commission an internal poll that he'll help to use him to decide whether to continue his long-shot bid for re-election. His campaign advisor, Frank Caroni, told the Daily News Caroni didn't offer a precise timeline or divulge who will conduct the poll, but Todd Sherman, Abrams' campaign spokesman, wouldn't share more details either, only saying the mayor will be spending his resources to get his message out and will then look at how his independent poll finds to talk about the mayor's race. So obviously Adams is going to drop out of the race.
Let me ask you, Dick, do you think, and my opinion on this, I think leaving these three guys in there is better for Curtis. What do you think about that? I really, I think it thins out that vote.
I think it will hurt Mamdani.
Right.
To have as many candidates as possible against him. But the point is that Adams is drawing such a small share of the vote, and the real opponent here is Cuomo. And as long as Cuomo stays in the race and asks people to forget about the mass murder of people in nursing homes, Mamdani is going to be elected. But But I do believe that Curtis Sliwa represents a real chance, basically our only chance.
Yeah.
But I want to continue to emphasize the point that even if Mamdani wins, he is not going to be able to govern.
Right.
He will cause an era of chaos in New York City that will destroy much of our city government and might leave the whole concept of home rule in tatters. Legally, New York City is an offshoot of New York State, and the governor of New York State controls New York City. He can even decide New York does not exist and suspend local government entirely. The governor has the power to remove the mayor. In 1932, Governor Franklin D. Roosevelt did so, removing Mayor Jimmy Walker. The political pressures on Hochul not to do that will be huge, and it might lead to her own defeat the next year. I hope it does in the election of 2026. But what's going to happen?
Stefanik or Lawler.
Yeah.
Stefanik or Lawler.
What's going to happen if Mamdani wins election and Hochul remains as governor is no bond dealer is going to buy bonds from the city of New York. Nobody in their right mind is going to lend New York more money. And they're not even going to re-up on money they've already lent. And the city will face immediate foreclosure on its debt. And it will have to close down, close its schools, close its everything.
So you think that would be enough for Hochul? Because I don't see Hochul doing anything with Mamdani.
Well, I think at that point the state has to intervene.
He would have to.
And at that point they will take over large segments of the city's sovereignty, probably never giving it back. And that will become the huge issue in the 2026 gubernatorial election.
Right.
But don't think that this maniac is going to step seamlessly into the government. The bond community will never allow that to happen. And New York City lives hand to mouth with the bond community lending its money to keep its schools open and its subways running.
You know, this is the genius of Dick Morris, that he thought about that, and it's amazing. So hopefully the guy doesn't get elected. Let's start with that.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully. Oh, she's a piece of work, too. All right, continue. You're still on.
So, you know, I lived through the fiscal crisis of 1975 in the Koch administration. And I
remember that.
I was a staffer at the Citizens Budget Commission, a private watchdog group, and I watched this very closely. And what happened, as you recall, is that New York could not sell its bonds. And they appealed to feds for aid, and the famous Daily News headline, President Ford to New York, dropped dead. And
really?
Yeah, that was the headline in the Daily News.
Wow.
And it accurately summarized what President Ford was saying. And as a result, the legislature passed and Governor Hugh Carey signed legislation creating the MAC, they called it the Big Mac, Municipal Assistance Corporation, which came in and said, we are issuing the bonds. We are taking over city finances. The mayor has nothing to do with this anymore. It's now entirely going to be vested in MAC. And no money could be spent by the city without MAC's approval. And basically New York did not govern itself for a 4 or 5 year period until MAC was eliminated because they felt they could trust the city again. And that's when it's going to happen to Mamdani.
Wow. So you were a watchdog?
Yeah.
You sleep like a dog. Sleeps like, well, you know, we have to laugh a little bit, right? It's just been such a sad time. So excuse me if I'm making some jokes. Go on, Dick. Continue.
Okay. When do we need to break, Lux?
We got time. Oh, no. We're going to break. All right.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
There has been, imagine if the baseball team had to go out and the infielders couldn't play. The only people who trotted out of the dugout were the 3 outfielders. It'd be really tough, and you'd end up letting a lot of runs score. But the U.S. Senate has now failed to confirm 150 appointments of Donald Trump. They're awaiting confirmation. So he can't govern without a cabinet. He can't govern without a sub-cabinet. And the Democrats have been blocking the confirmation. Not for any reason. All of them eventually get through. But the Democrats have just been refusing to help Trump govern. So...
Like a bunch of little babies ain't going to make you slow down?
Yeah.
Really?
So the Senate has okayed a rule change now, which they can, which permits en bloc confirmations. The GOP cemented the move, which altered the blueprint to allow an unlimited number of nominees to be included in a single vote in order to clear the nearly 150 that are awaiting confirmation. Now,
did you make that word up?
En blanc? No.
Yeah, I never heard that.
No, it's a word. It means all together.
Is it French?
Yep.
That's why I don't like it.
The Supreme Court this week okayed random immigration stops in Los Angeles. And this is absolutely huge. The Supreme Court, in the 6-3 decision on September 8th, lifted a lower court order that had restricted random immigration stops in the LA area. The High Court's action allows federal agents to conduct such stops without prior judicial review, based on factors like race, language, or occupation, which the lower court had found to be discriminatory. This ruling is a victory for the Trump administration's immigration policies. In New York, we had a similar situation with the stop and frisk law that was passed under Giuliani.
And Ray...
and continued by Bloomberg.
And Ray Kelly, right?
Right. And it helped tell police officers that if you see someone who has no business being there at 3 in the morning in a high-crime area, you can stop him, frisk him, and see if he's carrying a weapon. And if he is and that weapon is not registered, you can arrest him and he will be subject to a mandatory minimum sentence.
It was kind of like Giuliani's broken window thing.
Well, but it was the ultimate step of that.
Yes.
And it became the most effective tool in fighting crime.
Fantastic. Hillary and Al Sharpton did away with that.
When stop and frisk ended, because the Sharpton, Hillary, and others sued, saying this is being used
discriminatory. Yeah, ridiculous.
When that happened, there was a tremendous increase in crime in New York that has remained ever since.
In the black community.
Yep.
And they didn't like it. The people that lived there said, no, we want this.
Attorney General Pam Bondi welcomed the decision, saying on X that it means immigration enforcement agents can continue carrying out roving patrols in California without judicial micromanagement. Sotomayor, the first Hispanic to serve on the Supreme Court, has joined in the dissent by the court's 2 other liberals. We should not have to live in a country where government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work in a low-wage job, rather than stand idly by while our constitutional freedoms are lost. I dissent. So, but the immigration agents say that the preponderance of illegal immigrants in Los Angeles is so large, the population is so great, that ICE agents should be allowed to stop people randomly to demand proof of their citizenship and their legal residence. And if they don't have it, they should be able to pick them up. The U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals declined to block the decision to stop this, prompting the Trump administration to turn to the Supreme Court. The brief Supreme Court order did not explain the basis for the decision, but Justice Brett Kavanaugh, part of the conservative majority who voted right, wrote a separate opinion in which he cast doubt on whether a constitutional violation had taken place. He said that because there's a large population of undocumented immigrants in Los Angeles, they tend to gather in certain locations and to seek daily work, frequently in construction or related jobs, and may not speak English. Law enforcement likely would have reasonable suspicion to stop people in many circumstances. Especially in an immigration case like this one, it's important to stress that the proper role of the judiciary. The judiciary does not set immigration policy or decide enforcement policies. Now, if that same precedent applies, as it undoubtedly will, in New York City, New York State, it's offering a real alternative in fighting crime. If we bring back stop, question, and frisk, which allows any cop to stop anyone who at an unusual hour of night in a high-crime neighborhood to find out what they're doing to stop crime. This, I think, is a huge measure and salvation of grace for New York if that decision stands.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. If we look at the annual gains under Trump, his first term, versus Obama and Biden, their 12-year reign, median income rose by $1,600 a year under Trump, and only $800 a year under Obama, and actually shrank under Biden. The real income of people, that is adjusted for inflation, dropped under the Democrats and rose under Trump and is continuing to rise.
And now, math scores plunge. We must rebuild American education from the ground up. Today, the National Assessment of Education Progress, NAEP, also known as, released the 2024 results from 12th grade assessment on math and reading and 8th grade results from 24 science assessment, all showing a stark decline. Following is the statement of CER founder and CEO Gene Allen. The latest NAEP scores confirm that parents and employers already know our schools are failing at the most basic task. Only 22% of high school seniors are proficient in math and just 35% in reading, the lowest in more than 20 years. This matches the devastating 8th grade results released earlier this year and continues a decade-long slide that began well before the pandemic. The steepest decline was for African American students whose 12th grade reading levels dropped 11 points, almost twice the rate of their white counterparts. So
the whole is becoming so clear that the most fundamental thing we have to do in this country is to replace the public schools with charter schools and parochial schools and home schools, and give parents the choice of school for their child to go to. They can choose their cars, they can choose their apartments, they can choose their brand of string beans, but they can't choose their school. And the result is that the public schools have a monopoly, and they've blown it completely. Now, some people said, no, this is just the pandemic. But these reading and math scores are after the pandemic. It's just very, very clear that the public school system is failing in America.
Yeah, but it's got to also be the parents are failing a little, too. You know what I mean? I can't believe it's just the school.
Yeah, but
the kids are lazy and the parents don't care. When the kid gets a bad mark, the parent goes in and yells at the teacher. I've heard that,
That's true. And it is true, but we can't change that.
Right.
But we can change the public sector.
Got it.
We can't break up a family.
Good.
But we can change where they go to school by giving them the choice. And every place where they have the choice, they overwhelmingly reject the traditional public schools. And we have got to honor that. And this decrease, this crash in reading and math scores, unbelievable crash, an 11-point drop for black students in the 12th grade, just shows the absolute vital importance of doing this.
Plus, school choice also enables people in bad neighborhoods with not so great schools to go to other schools. So there you go with that also. So, okay, good.
Now, There are big, huge changes taking place as a result of recent Supreme Court decisions on presidential powers, particularly on appointments and on immigration. Decisions on cases relating to President Trump's top priorities, curbing illegal immigration and bleeding the deep state at SCOTUS this week, portend bigger victories for Trump ahead. The Trump administration is celebrating 2 more victories handed down Monday by the Supreme Court, with the latest developments appearing to signal bigger wins ahead on 2 White House priorities: the deportation of illegal immigrants and the removal of political appointees from so-called independent agencies. First, Chief Judge John Roberts Stade put a hold on decision by the D.C. courts that overturned the president's firing of Rebecca Slaughter, a member of the Federal Trade Commission. Trump fired Slaughter, who'd been appointed by him in 2018 and reappointed by Biden in 23. Slaughter, like others removed by the president, sued. She said that, like the others, federal law and Supreme Court precedent required the president to demonstrate inefficiency, neglective duty, or malfeasance in office as a basis for removing a political appointee. But Naomi Rayo, the D.C. appellate judge appointed by Trump, disagreed with her 2 Obama-appointed colleagues on the panel and criticized the judiciary's unprecedented breach into executive branch territory. An injunction ordering reinstatement of an officer removed by the president likely exceeds the Article III judicial power and encroaches on the president's exercise of the Article II executive power, Rayo wrote. The Constitution establishes 3 departments of the federal government. The so-called independent agencies are necessarily part of the executive branch, not some headless 4th branch. The Trump administration is performing extra-constitutional cauterization desperately needed after the decade-long mission creep that slowly but inexorably have established a 4th branch of government that is working opaque, unaccountable, and in their own thinking impervious to congressional oversight or presidential power. This is what President Trump describes as the deep state.
The deep state.
Worse for the self-appointed headless heads of the 4th branch is that the Supreme Court continues to rule against them. The highest court has recently upheld the president's firing of several members of political appointments at the Office of Special Counsel, the Merit Systems Protection Board, and the National Labor Relations Board, to name a few, firings that have been reversed by lower court judges in Washington. Rayo, the judge, said, "The text, structure, and original meaning of the Constitution all point in the same direction: the president's control and supervision of the executive branch requires that he be able to remove his officers at will, and follows that Congress cannot limit this removal power."
Don't you serve at the president's behest, pleasure, whatever?
Some
right?
do, but there are a large number of agencies where they don't, where once the appointment is made, it's made for a certain term of office. For example, members of the Federal Reserve Board serve, I think, for 14-year terms, and members of various other commissions serve for 4- and 8-year terms, or 6-year terms.
But isn't he your ultimate boss?
And Trump has tried to step in and fire them before their term is over, saying, "I don't like you, I don't agree with what you're doing, you're not following my policies, and you're fired." You know, he's good at that. And but now the courts are saying, "Wait a minute, this is how the secret government gets started." Because these people are no longer serving at the pleasure of the president. And it is true that when the office was created, Congress tried to limit the president's power by saying it's just for certain terms of office, and you can't remove in the middle of the terms. But what the Supreme Court is now doing is setting that aside and saying we're not going to follow what Congress did. The president has a constitutional power to run the executive branch of government, and that cannot be superseded by term limits imposed by Congress.
Okie dokie.
Perhaps more important to the president's agenda is another Supreme Court decision that put on hold the California judge's order or halting ICE raids in Los Angeles. The following month, Judge Frimpong, a Biden appointee, granted a temporary restraining order sought by immigration activists, claiming that the raids were unconstitutional and racist.
Of course it's racist.
Frimpong agreed. Roving patrols without reasonable suspicion violate the Fourth Amendment. She prohibited law enforcement officials from relying on race and ethnicity, language, presence at areas frequented by illegals. The type of labor one does is the basis for radio setup. But in a 6-3 decision, with the liberal harpies as usual siding against the Trump administration, along with another unhinged tirade by Sonia Sotomayor, who said she cannot stand idly by while our constitutional freedoms are lost, the court paused Frimpong's directive and allowed the IC mission to proceed for now. Writing for the majority, Judge Brett Kavanaugh offered a forceful defense of the president's policies. He wrote at least 15 people are in the United States illegally.
15 million
people are in the United States illegally, and at least 2 million live in Los Angeles. Immigration stops based on reasonable suspicion of illegal presence have been an important component of U.S. immigration enforcement for decades across several presidential administrations, Kavanaugh wrote in his 10-page concurrence. So, as I said in an earlier segment, this opens the door for stop and question and frisk in New York City and New York State and in other areas of the country. And this is the most effective anti-crime strategy we've ever had. And the court threw it out saying it was discriminatory. But now the Supreme Court seems to be reopening the door, as it did with ICE raids in Los Angeles, and saying you can go ahead and do it.
You know, we get Curtis we get Curtis in New York City. He would do something with the stop and frisk. And we had Ray Kelly, I almost said Greg Kelly. We had Ray Kelly on, it was a couple of years ago now, where we were talking about there's a new system they have where they could scan someone from 20 feet away and see if they have a big piece of metal on them, which would be a gun. So would make stop and frisk a little less invasive towards people where they say it's racism,
and
whatever.
That's what we need to do in New York.
Right.
And Curtis Sliwa would do it. Now, Andrew Cuomo will not.
And Mandami will give them guns.
The restriction on stop, question, and frisk was passed by the court, but then implemented and commended by Cuomo.
Right.
So if you think Cuomo's...
Wait a minute. What was implemented by Cuomo to
ending
do
stop,
ending
question,
it.
and frisk?
Right. Oh, I didn't realize that.
And as a result, we do not have that tool. If the cops find someone with a with what looks like a gun protruding from his waist pocket, but not immediately visible, and 2 in the morning in East Harlem, they can't stop him. They can't do anything about him.
Yeah, it's racist.
And that was Cuomo's decision. And that's one of the big reasons to elect Sliwa. Instead, a lot of people are saying, what difference would Sliwa make as opposed to Cuomo?
Oh, my God.
Well, we do remember
right there.
We do remember but Cuomo with the nursing homes and his various affairs.
But we can bring that up.
Right there, the issue of whether to continue, whether to resume stop, question, and frisk is a huge policy difference where Cuomo's right, Cuomo's wrong, and Sliwa is right.
And here you go, the next story that we'll talk about. Mandani vows to reduce jail population, calls for the elimination of anti-gang task force. So right there, go Dick, talk about that.
Yeah, the left says there are too many people in Rikers Island. There are too many people in jail. Well,
not enough bad people out of jail, walking the streets?
Exactly. What we have to do is release them pending their trials and let them go. And not have bail, not have an ability to make them come back to face the charges. And these folks who have been arrested, booked, and in many cases convicted are freed and allowed to go back on the street. And that is what Mamdani is advocating.
You have to think, what's the vote he's looking for when he says something like that? What are you looking
the
for?
socialist vote. The vote of crazy, stupid young people that do not understand that crime will take over their city, ruin their city, destroy their city if they vote for Mamdani.
That's why we have to have a podcast, Dick, so we can get out to the liberals and the left. Because our message right now is going out to the choir. We're singing to the choir right now. And that's what Curtis is working on, too. So it's unbelievable. Who would vote for this guy after he says that? Why do you want people in jail coming out of jail?
Yeah.
That just doesn't make a lot of sense.
And why should a cop risk his life,
That's the other
his
thing.
job, his
Right.
pension, his civil service?
Well, he's not going to
protection?
have any money anyway because he wants to defund the police.
Yeah, right.
So he's not going to have a job anyway.
Right.
This is really so odd.
Good luck living in a city without cops.
This is so odd to think that, 20 years ago, if we talked about this, we'd laugh. Yeah, sure, what are you, a moron? But it's really happening.
Yeah.
This is like a bad movie, a B movie. So anyway, when we get back, we're going to talk about
The DEA is doing its job. There was a massive, massive strike at the Sinaloa drug cartel. And normally we don't report about each strike, but this one was massive.
When we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Dick, before we get on to this Sinaloa drug cartel, let's talk to Tony from Clifton, New Jersey. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Tony hung up. How about Al from Yonkers?
Doug, thanks for taking my call. I want to just say, with such as not too much time left in the mayor's race, Curtis Sliwa, as any candidate running for a mayor of a city or Congress, whatever, he has to basically spend time in his strongholds now and not waste time and go to places where you can't win. And he's got to try in Staten Island and Queens to really turn the vote up, because he's going to get slaughtered in Brooklyn, Bronx, and all. So in Staten Island and Queens, parts of Queens, maybe Morris Park in the Bronx, he's really got to spend a lot of times in this area and really turn up the vote. Like, for instance, in Staten Island, you got a popular person like Frank Morano. He was just elected council in a special election. So he's got to try to get coattails from Frank or vice versa and really bring that vote up. It's in a sense, it's identity politics.
Yep, I agree with that. But I do believe that we have to realize that Mamdani's vote was very low. While he was the number one runner, and he won the Democratic primary.
Like 41% or something?
Well, he's now polling at 41, but he won with 50-something, but a relatively low turnout. And a decent turnout of decent, sane people should swamp Mamdani. Talking about the DEA.
Okay. The Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, announced Monday the results of a nationwide operational surge targeting the Sinaloa cartel, one of the world's most violent and powerful drug trafficking organizations. Over the course of a single week, agents seized massive quantities of narcotics, arrested hundreds of suspects, and struck a major financial blow against the cartel's criminal network. From August 25th through August 29th of this year, DEA agents carried out coordinated enforcement operations across 23 domestic field divisions and 7 foreign regions. The actions resulted in 617 arrests and the seizure of a staggering amount of illicit drugs, including 480 kilograms of fentanyl powder, 700,000 counterfeit fentanyl pills, 2,200 kilograms of methamphetamine, 7,000 kilograms of cocaine, and 16.55 kilograms of heroin. That's a lot of junk, I'll tell you that right now.
So the DEA is doing its job.
They're doing their job.
Now, while we all are focusing on Charlie Kirk, we need to go back to a murder that happened earlier in the week.
In North Carolina. This poor girl. This is horrible. President, this is the girl from Ukraine. Oh, and his guy got cashless bail. That's why that guy was out. President Trump condemned the vicious and fatal stabbing of Ukrainian refugee, I'm going to say this right, Irina Zarutska, that's it, right? Zarutska, in Charlotte, slamming Democrats on Monday over the crime in North Carolina. The suspect was identified as 34-year-old DeCarlo Brown, who was seen on surveillance video stabbing, so horrible, the 23-year-old. Trump said of the murder on Truth Social, "I have seen the horrific video of this beautiful young woman who came to America to escape the vicious war in Ukraine and was innocently riding the metro in Charlotte, North Carolina, where she was brutally ambushed by a mentally deranged lunatic piece of garbage." He didn't say that, I said that. The perpetrator was a well-known career criminal who had been previously arrested and released on a cashless bail thing in January. What the hell was he doing riding the train, Trump said, and walking the streets? Criminals like this need to be locked up. The blood of this innocent woman can literally be seen dripping from the killer's knife. Ugh. And now her blood is on the hands of the Democrats who refuse to put bad people in jail, including the former disgraced governor and wannabe Senator Roy Cooper. North Carolina and every state needs law and order, and only Republicans will deliver it. Additionally, where is the outrage from the mainstream media on this horrible tragedy? Vote for Michael Whatley for United States Senate. He won't let this happen again. That's Trump talking.
Now, while that's happening, there is a tremendous surge throughout the country to end cashless bail. And the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, a former conservative.
Wait, I need to interrupt one. But it's not national cashless bail, it's state, right?
State, right. But the movement is to cut off federal funding to any state that doesn't.
Do we know how many states kind of do it? Percentage?
I don't have it here, but
it's a percentage.
But Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, has said that he will eliminate cut funding to the light rail system in Charlotte,
right?
Which the woman who was killed was riding,
right?
And he also said he'd do the same thing to the subways in New York City,
right.
And it's only if we implement those kinds of policies, and we tell municipalities that if you release people without bail who are arrested and booked, awaiting trial,
and taking your money
away,
you will
lose your federal funding.
In other words, money talks.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
Exactly. And why should we be funding systems that endanger people's lives like this?
Once again, why are we even talking about that? Who wants people out on cashless bail that never are going to come back? So right there, once again, just like the New York mayor guy, Mondani. The whole idea that we're even talking about doing that's what we have to do. We have to get you in the wallet for them to make a decision that is really just common sense. You want to go to this next one? All right, so the polling shows small businesses using Trump tax cuts to raise wages. Job Creators Network, America's largest small business advocacy group, released fresh polling data this week showing that mere months after Trump's signed the Republican-led One Big Gigantic Great Bill into act, a full 42% of American small businesses plan to raise employee wages, benefits, as a result of their tax cut savings, and 91% plan to raise wages, benefits, expand hiring, and reinvest in their communities. And this thing said, the national poll conducted by Scott Rasmussen and our friend John McLaughlin would survey 400 small business owners from August 1st to the 20th, passed as a part of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. I love it. I love it. It's working.
Now, as you know, Adams is likely to drop out of the mayor's race. But
you really think that?
I think he will drop out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Because nobody announces that they're conducting a poll on whether or not they should drop out without planning to drop out.
Got it.
Announcing it kills your fundraising, so they're not going to do it.
Okay.
But Mamdani still has a substantial lead. His margin of victory would narrow substantially if both Adams and Sliwa dropped out.
Curtis will never, ever drop out.
The Siena College New York Times poll found Adams trailing the pack with only 9% of the vote, compared with Mamdani at 46% and Cuomo at 24% and Sliwa at 15%. The poll shows the race getting substantially tighter, though, if the mayor and Sliwa were both to remove themselves from consideration. But Mamdani's lead still remains at 4 points, 48 to 44. So all those folks dropping out is not the only way to defeat Mamdani. The other way is to elect Curtis Sliwa. And let's remember that it's still September. We still have a lot of time until the election, and a lot of time for people to realize what's going on.
Now, this is a sad story. Trump locates 23,000 minors, children, Biden lost in the system. Horrific. Federal authorities have located thousands of unoccupied minors who disappeared.
Unaccompanied.
Unaccompanied minors who disappeared during the Biden administration, with investigations revealing disturbing cases of exploitation, trafficking, and death among vulnerable migrant children. Horrible. The Trump administration has successfully tracked down 22,000, more than that, children since March. These children were among an estimated 233,000 unaccompanied minors who crossed the U.S.-Mexico border during President Biden's tenure and subsequently went missing from the government's record. Remember when they would say Trump is separating families from children from families? What is that, right? John, let's get this name right, Fabricatore, John Fabricatore, senior advisor for the HHS Office of Refugee Resettlement, detailed the horrific discoveries to Fox. We found children who have been, raped, he said. I can't even talk about this. The investigation uncovered multiple forms of exploitation targeting these vulnerable minors. We're talking about bondage, where children are being debt binders, they're calling it debt, where children are being made to work off their debt, trafficking debt. Oh, my God. We're talking about children that were brought into situations and them treated like sexual slaves, Fabricatore explained during his interview. Now, let me ask you this. It's hard to believe that parents are that stupid or ignorant or whatever they are that let their children go with some...
Or that corrupt.
That let their children go with these people that they give them $1,000, take my kid into the thing. How? I don't get that either. Another thing.
Well,
would I let my two daughters, or would you let your kid?
You wouldn't, but these people are. And there's a real market for selling children into slavery.
But don't they know that's going to happen?
Yeah,
the parents,
they
don't care. They want to get rid of them.
They just want the money.
Right. Oh my God.
There's no entry test for parents.
So so hold on. So in my thought right now, which is horrible thought I'm having, were they having children so in 10 years they could do that? Let's have 14 kids right now, as many as we can.
Maybe they were.
Wow. I mean, I just can't. I just can't get it together on this. People would do that. All right, so no, this is higher minimum wage costs more teen unemployment.
Causes more teen unemployment.
California, which recently raised its minimum wage to $16.50, the highest in the nation, now has a teen jobless rate of 21%, by far the highest in the nation, because employees can't afford this minimum wage anymore. So what are they getting, illegals to work for them?
Yeah.
Probably, right?
Yes.
I don't know that, but anyway, backfiring once again on the Democrats. A lot of their policies just seem to backfire, Dick,
Yep.
So often.
Or front fire, they just won't admit that it was deliberate.
Yeah, right. It's Trump's fault.
Now, Israel attacked in Qatar, Qatar, the Emirate state, carried out a strike targeting Hamas leadership in Doha, Qatar on Tuesday, marking a major escalation in its war against the militant group. The Hamas leaders, who sit there with impunity in their high-rise apartments in Doha and Qatar, can't be touched, and but their orders are given to lower-level people in Hamas, who Israel is trying to kill.
Yeah, the strike has enraged Doha and could significantly undermine efforts to secure a truce in Gaza as Israeli forces continue. But listen, if you're going to have some bad people across the street from you and you rule that block, and then the cops come in and blow up that guy's house, that's just too bad.
Now, this is a double game that Qatar plays that so far the U.S. has gone along with. It claims that it wants better relations, and it offers to play a central role in ceasefire and hostage deal negotiations. But much of Hamas leadership has lived in Doha for years. After Tuesday's attack, Doha announced that it was suspending its mediation efforts between Hamas and Israel. Qatar's Department of Foreign Affairs described the Israeli strike as a blatant violation of international law.
Too bad.
Stating that the country will not tolerate this reckless Israeli behavior and continuous tampering with the security of the region.
Yeah, that's convenient.
The White House was also critical of the Israeli attack, which came as the Trump administration continues efforts to secure a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and ally of the U.S., that is working very hard and bravely taking risks to help us broker peace, does not advance Israel's or America's goal, said Carolyn Leavitt, the White House spokesman. Though Leavitt said eliminating Hamas was a worthy goal, she emphasized that Trump views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the U.S., adding that he feels very badly about the location of this attack.
I understand.
Here I just disagree with Trump. I think that Israel should be given the right
to do whatever they want
to eliminate Hamas.
That's it.
And
done.
You can't tell them to go after the guy that carries the rifle, but not the guy that buys the rifle.
Right. That's right. And we love you there, boss, but sorry. That's what we're saying.
Now, we talked about this poor woman's murder and fatal stabbing on a Charlotte train.
So Democrat-led cities such as Charlotte, North Carolina, that don't protect citizens on public transit systems should not receive federal funding, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy talked about. Duffy appeared on a news program to discuss a recent fatal stabbing of the 23-year-old Irina Zaruska by a career criminal on the Charlotte train, and his department's investigation into the transportation system that received taxpayer dollars. It's not just Charlotte, it's New York, it's Chicago, it's Boston, it's others who failed to keep their riders safe, Duffy said. Again, they have these priorities where again, if you ride a train, it's for the homeless or it's for the criminals, not for the good people of your community. And so, in this investigation, we're going to look and see how much their money is actually spent on law enforcement, keeping people safe. In this community, they have an honor system to get on that transit system.
In Charlotte, yeah.
Yeah, on the transit system. You're not forced to even pay. Those are things that we have to look at. In other words, just get on the thing, don't worry about it. But I think this is Duffy. I think every single American watching this show should say, you know what? My tax dollars shouldn't go to fund a transportation system like this or any other that a 23-year-old girl who's coming home from work late at night can't get on safely and ride. If that's what they want to have, they can fund it themselves. I like that idea. But my tax dollars shouldn't go to that system. That's just a debacle. That's so they won't keep these young people safe. Duffy added that the only equity we have is money, a DOT with transit system. We'll put that, he said, and by the way, we give a lot of money to local transportation systems. And again, they rely on our cash. We're going to pull it if they can't find a way to figure this out. So that's what we're going to do, and good for him.
Good for him.
And then when we get back, we'll talk about other stuff to ban driver's license.
You've talked about a lot, banning driver's licenses for illegals.
Yeah.
When we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Doug has been talking a lot during the last election about illegals voting for president of the United States.
With driver's licenses.
And as you know, we've been pushing a campaign to stop people from doing that.
We put signs up all over the place, where there were swing states that said, if you're illegal and you vote, we're going to find you. We're going to track you, and we're going to deport you. And I think it stopped. I think Trump's lawyer, somebody said they had 21 million, what they call motor voters, given the illegals licenses. So, and then they could vote because on the back you check off on your application, even though you're not legal to vote. But if you checked it off, your license says you can vote. But then if the guy at the voting booth, voting station doesn't look you up, oh yeah, go right in, you could vote. So she was worried about, what was it, Cletus? I forget.
Marsha Blackburn.
Yeah, was worried about 21 million illegal voters with licenses. So I put out these signs and trucks with digital signs that said, if you do this, we're going to find you. I think a lot of them stayed home. But anyway, we got Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee, is introducing legislation on the 24th anniversary of September 11th terrorist attack on the United States that would prevent states from issuing driver's license to illegal aliens. Blackburn is introducing the Stop Greenlighting Driver's License for Illegal Immigrants Act, which would prohibit states from receiving Edward Byrne Memorial Justice System grant funding if they are issuing driver's license to illegal aliens or preventing law enforcement from sharing information on illegal aliens with federal immigration agents. 19 states, as well as District of Columbia, issued driver's license to illegal aliens. States should not be rewarding illegal aliens for breaking our immigration laws by handing out driver's license like candy, Blackburn said. We are a nation of laws. American cities and states that willfully defy federal immigration law to protect illegal aliens must be held accountable.
It's worth noting that the 20th hijacker was illegally in the United States, but had a driver's license, and he was the 20th hijacker on 9/11.
There you go. I think that's it.
Leading Democrats are increasingly endorsing Mamdani. The Democratic Party is increasingly rallying around this communist, and there are congressmen from all over the country who are Democrats who are endorsing him. Pat Ryan, Democrat of New York, said his endorsement of Mamdani largely came from his disapproval of Andrew Cuomo, whom Mamdani seeks to defeat during the mayor's race. Ryan, who represents a swing congressional district just north of New York, said in this one it's very, very crystal clear who's for the people and who's for themselves. If anybody has any doubt about that, Donald Trump's maneuvering, validating the Cuomo, she could sell his soul to the devil easily. So he's endorsing the devil.
Bernie Sanders has long made his support for Mandami clear, joining the fellow socialists on the stump and co-hosting campaign events. Right there. If Sanders likes this guy, you know not to vote for him. You know?
Now, a lot of people have been saying that ICE, is detaining people, innocents, who are simply here illegally but have not done anything wrong.
So criminals, while the others on the national security threats or gang members who often lack a criminal. History fact, 70% of ICE arrests have involved illegal aliens convicted of or charged with crimes. According to the Center for Immigration Studies, 35% of the illegal aliens in ICE detentions have criminal convictions. 30% have pending criminal
charges.
Yeah.
So 2/3 of the people ICE is picking up are criminals in addition to being here illegally. They've either been convicted or facing charges on it.
Well, we got to work on all of this crime. Now Trump is sending the National Guard into Memphis. So here we go. Kim Jarrett, Senator, Republican State Senator Brent Taylor of Memphis thanked President Trump for, that's nice, he's thanking President Trump for saying he's deploying the National Guard to Memphis. Taylor said in a post on social media that he and U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee have discussed Memphis crime problem for months. The Senator and I have talked about how National Guard troops can best be used as a force multiplier to support local, state, and federal law enforcement officials. That's what Taylor said. This may include administrative and logistical support for law enforcement professionals, permitting an increased presence of local and state officials in the community seeking out lawbreakers and protecting the public. That's a beautiful thing. Law and order is the first and most important function of government, McNally said. Memphis has not been in control of its crime problem for many years. Memphis City Councilwoman Jerry Green, running for governor as a Democrat, said National Guard troops make headlines, but they don't solve problems. Really? Tennessee doesn't need more boots. We need smarter investments, of course, more money, throw at them. Common sense gun laws. Okay, you don't have enough gun laws. Safer neighborhoods, mental health support, anti-blight funding. I don't know what that means. Business training, streamlined jail process, and survivor service. Let me tell you something.
It was everything but stopping crime.
And they have half of this stuff anyway. They don't have an answer. So they talk to their stupid people and go, oh, yeah, we need, let's say, what'd she say again, what we need? Smarter investment, common sense gun laws. You don't have common sense gun laws, you're saying?
This would be the first step that Trump has taken outside of Washington, D.C. to deploy National Guard troops.
You know what they really need, Dick? No Democrat leaders.
Yeah. And there's been a real speculation that it would be in Chicago or in New York, and now it looks like they're going to be in Memphis. And this is a very important step forward, and one that I hope ultimately comes to New York.
Well,
the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
I was going to go to a caller. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Elaine in Tennessee. She's talking about drones.
I wanted to go back to the venue that Charlie Kirk spoke in. And I know he did not like high security around him because he wanted to have access to the people. Why did they not employ a drone during the time that he was speaking?
Because they didn't think a shooter was going to take him out. You know, they weren't thinking about that.
And the Secret Service does not have a mandate to protect a speaker at a political rally.
Forget the Secret Service. Now, I think, first of all, I think Joe Concha said this earlier. I don't know where I had heard just recently. One thing that could happen, and maybe Sandra mentioned it, I don't know, that this could stop people from going out and speaking. No, it's not. People are still going to want to speak. It might slow down the venue, you know, whether it's the school or the building, the area they're going to. But if we do something like that, Elaine, you get a security team. That's what they're going to have to do. If a college wants to have this, they're going to have security teams. Yeah. And I say that's a good business right now for people to get into, some security guys like our friend Joe Becerra and guys like that, to have a team that they have 100 drones so they can go to 2 or 3 different colleges a week and be there. So I think that's something that we have to look into. I just made that up just now. I think that's good.
I think that's
start a business, a security team business that you have, 100 drones, you got 100 guys, and they all go to different places or every week, all the time, and they're secure. Not a police state. You don't want it to look like a police state. I think it could be done. Listen, we're around Trump all the time. And there's Secret Service. And after you get wand and you go through the middle, you don't see them around. You kind of see them a little here and there in front of Trump, but you don't see 90% of the guys in all the different corners of the room and, up top. So I think they could do this. I think security people could do that. Thank you, Elaine.
One of the forms of fraud in the last election was Biden kept issuing statements saying he was doing great, and Harris that Biden did great.
Yeah, sure.
And they had created all of these jobs. There is now an expose that shows that the BLS job numbers were off by almost 3 million jobs.
Wow.
Over the past 30 months or so of the Biden administration, the BLS had overestimated job growth by some 2.8 million from original headline estimates. It's suspicious that almost all the errors were in the direction of making Biden's job numbers look better than they really were. I think we're all aware of that.
It's unbelievable.
Now, the Food and Drug Administration under Kennedy is introducing sweeping reforms to stop misleading pharmaceutical advertisements. We'll talk about that when we return from the break in a minute.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So my good friend Phil, I'm not going to give his last name, from Yonkers, who's an amazing bass player. He's like, what's his name? He's just so amazing. Phil, talk to us. You called me. What are we talking about here?
We're talking about SSRIs.
Uh-huh.
I think you guys were talking about it last week. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, antidepressants.
Hey, Phil,
This
good
is
to
a
talk to
very
you.
dangerous. This is a very dangerous drug. It's especially dangerous in adolescents and young adults. The suicide rate is about 4%, and that's only in reported. That doesn't count all the incidents that go unreported. It also causes homicidal ideations, and I'm curious to know if Charlie Kirk's shooter was on an antidepressant. This is a very powerful drug.
What's it called again, Phil? The SSRI. Tell me what that is.
SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors.
It's better known as Lipitor or Prozac, right? Yeah.
Yes, Prozac was the one that changed the face of antidepressants from the time it came out. Then there are 20 or 30 SSRIs now, and they're all claiming the same.
Main one's Lipitor, isn't it?
No, Lipitor is anti-cholesterol drug. The biggest one is, I think the biggest one out there is still Prozac. You have Prozac, you have Paxil, you got Zoloft, you got Effexor.
Zoloft is what I meant, yeah.
Is that Mandami's first name?
Yeah.
Zoloft.
Yeah. So, and that's a key point. Since the pharmaceutical industry began paying for ads on television, and the government began to allow that, there's been a tremendous fall off in the coverage linking murders with drugs, with pharmaceutical drugs and antidepressants.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And the media used to cover what was the shooter on. And ever since the networks began to taking money from the drug industry, they suddenly shut up about it and stopped covering it.
Oh, isn't that quaint?
And we don't know
You never
about
hear about it.
And you're
You
right.
never hear
we need
about
to
Wow.
find out if Charlie
So
Cook's killer was on this.
So listen, Phil, you could have called and talked to Dick about the Yankees, talked to me about playing music, but this is better. That's what Phil calls me. He wants to talk.
That was a very kind introduction, by the way. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, he's amazing. This guy playing bass. All right, we got to go, Phil. Thank you.
On the broader
All right,
issue
guys.
of pharmaceutical advertising, FDA is introducing sweeping reforms to stop misleading pharmaceutical ads. As part of the initiative, FDA sent thousands of letters warning drug companies to remove misleading ads and issued approximately 100 cease and desist orders to company with deceptive ads.
Just what we're talking about.
FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary noted that drug advertising companies spent 25% of their budget on advertising. So if meds cost too much and healthcare costs too much, cut the budget for advertising. 25% of the money drug companies spend is for ads. These billions of dollars would be better spent on lowering drug prices for everyday Americans. A 2024 review in the Journal of Pharmacological Health Services Research reveals that while 100% of pharmaceutical social media posts highlight drug benefits, only a third mention potential harms. 88%.
Wait, don't they have to do that when they in the ads they have to?
Yeah.
Right. Disclaimer.
88% of the ads for top-selling drugs are posted by individuals and organizations that fail to adhere to the FDA Fair Balance guidelines. Listen to this. The United States is the only country in the world, out of 186 of them, except for New Zealand, that allows direct advertising to consumers. Drug companies spent $11 billion last year on direct-to-consumer pharmaceutical advertising. And that's why the drugs are widely used. It's why nobody associates them with violence. And it's why there's never news coverage about the extent to which killers and shooters are high or down, if you will, on these drugs.
Wow, that's kind of, I've never thought about it that way. I guess they should have no advertising.
Yeah.
But then the government has to come in.
Let me tell you this.
And say what drug is.
From politics. One of the biggest things that's never mentioned by the media, never mentioned in any of the television or radio or in political campaigns, is the amount of money that's wasted on pharmaceutical companies doing advertising. And the reason you don't know about it, the reason nobody talks about it, is that the media won't let you talk about it because it's a major source of their revenue.
Right.
And the politicians don't want to alienate the media, and the media companies don't want to lose the revenue.
Once again, money talks, right?
And but the rest of us remain silent because nobody breaks that code of silence. And
as other than you right now.
Yeah. And it's very, very important. I think the step announced by the FDA is a good step, but I think it's a halfway step, a third of the way step. The real answer is for the United States to join New Zealand in banning direct advertising of drugs to consumers and take the $10.8 billion spent last year on direct-to-consumer drug company advertising and use it instead to fight drug addiction and to lower prices for drugs.
Wow, that's something.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take other calls.
What do you got? Marianne from New Jersey. Got to make it fast, Marianne. We're coming to a break. Marianne? I guess not. That's all right. Anyway, Charlie. Okay. Let's go to Charlie.
Hello. What I want to talk about when you're talking about Mandami, I want to shut down Rikers Island. A point which is not frequently made or hardly made at all is that Rikers Island does suffer from severe prison overcrowding. It's like they're stacking prisons up like
it does. So build more.
Build more.
There are plenty of empty buildings in New York. Right. Don't let them out in the streets, and don't let the overcrowding force you to do that. For goodness sakes, don't put them on the streets of New York. Don't put them on the subways next to me. Don't put
Right.
them on a bus.
Right. Build another building.
There are thousands of buildings.
Actually, it's overpopulated. Get them to build more buildings. You know. But anyway, we got to go. I want to talk about very important, Charlie Kirk again. And it was so important to even get to see all his videos all the time. Everyone should go out, get online and look at all what he has to say. It's just keep him going, keep his life, his spirit alive, because now he's going to be speaking louder than ever. And that was really important for us to do that. Charlie Kirk, great individual. Love him. So upset I didn't get to sit with him at that table with the general.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Trying to lose weight? It's time to try Hers. At forhers.com/4u, you can access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss treatments tailored just for you. These include oral medication kits or compounded GLP-1 injections. Through Hers, pricing for oral medication kits start at just $69 a month for a 10-month plan when paid in full up front. No hidden fees, no membership fees. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hers brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. Reach your weight loss goals with help through Hers. Get started at forhers.com/4u to access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss plans. That's forhers.com/4u, forhers.com/4u. Paid for by Hims and Hers Health. Weight loss by Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions at forhers.com apply.